Hey everybody, it's Jesse again, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And I'd like to especially welcome all the new subscribers. Thank you. I appreciate you following the channel. Today I'm going to tell a story about my time in the military. And this story takes place, I was about 21 years old, stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington. And before I begin telling the actual story, I need to fill you in on a little background about Sergeant Baycorn. Now, Sergeant Baycorn was our platoon leader, and he was a master sergeant. For my fellow veterans out there, you'll know what that is, but for those of you who don't know, he was a non-commissioned officer, pretty high-ranking non-commissioned officer. To me and my friend, whose name was Stringer, we called each other by our last names back then, so Baycorn and Stringer are the people's last names. To me and my fellow 21-year-old Gen X friend Stringer, Sergeant Baycorn represented everything we hated. He was older, and he represented the man and authority and just everything that me and Stringer despised about society and all that stuff. The stuff I still despise about society. But anyway, trying to figure out if you're wondering why people like us would join the Army feeling that way, then I've got a video about that, about the military and why I joined and stuff. But anyway, so yeah, Sergeant Baycorn, we just hated him. Now, in retrospect, he was probably a nice guy. He was probably a good guy, just doing what he had to do. But back then, from a 21-year-old perspective, he just represented everything that was bad in the world. And being a master sergeant, he had the power and authority to completely destroy 2 PFCs. He could have destroyed our lives. He could have probably sent us to jail, definitely written us up and gotten us fined and taken our money. He could have done all these things. So he had the power to do these things. So you got to remember that when listening to this story. So the story begins with me and Stringer. We go to a bar just to get hammered. I mean, basically me and Stringer back then, we went to a bar to get drunk. And I never really did that halfway when I was younger. When I was young, when I drank to get hammered. I didn't drink to socially, kind of get a light buzz and make friends and stuff like that. That wasn't me. I was antisocial, and I got shit-faced hammered every chance I got. So anyway, we go to this bar, and we end up meeting a couple of girls while we're drinking. We get to talking to them, and we end up closing down the bar. But the bar is attached to it is a diner, so it's a bar and a diner combined. And when the bar closed down, you could go over to the diner. And the girls wanted to do that because they were waiting on a friend. So we all go over to the diner, sit down in a booth, and they tell us how they're waiting on this friend and her boyfriend. We're waiting on Sally and her boyfriend. They're about to come and whatever. I said, we're sitting there just BSing. We're not really trying to get with the girls. It was more just a social thing. We were bored, drinking, and now we had to sober up for a little while before we drove home back to the barracks. So we decided to sit down with them and eat something and whatever. So we're sitting there and talking and whatnot, and eventually one of them looks up and points, and there's Sally there. So I turn around and look, and coming through the door is their friend Sally, and wouldn't you know it, Sergeant Baycorn, dressed in civilian clothing. And me and Stringer look at each other. We're like, this is the guy that's dating their friend. And they kept saying, Steve. I forgot to say that. That's an important part. Steve is coming with, her boyfriend Steve. We're meeting her boyfriend Steve or whatever. We're looking at them, and they come over and sit down, and Sergeant Baycorn's looking at us, right? Because he knows us. Of course, he knows he doesn't like us either. Me and Stringer both were good field soldiers. We, land navigation, being out in the woods, surviving, fighting, that kind of stuff. But we were not good garrison soldiers, which is For those of you with no military experience, garrison soldiers are the guys that spit shine their shoes, kiss ass, and they're just I don't know how to explain it more, but they're garrison soldiers. Then you go out into the field, which is our actual job, going out into the field and driving around and fighting and, land navigation and this stuff, and they suck out there. Which I was always the one doing push-ups because my boots were dull and my uniform was wrinkled because I stayed up all night drinking. But then we'd go out to the field and I would win awards in the field. I had a brick of awards, not for being not for being spit shined and stuff, but for doing well out in field training. But in garrison, we just gave them hell. We didn't like it. We didn't like sitting around shining boots and cleaning Humvee tires and doing all that dumb crap. We just hated it, and we gave the senior non-commissioned officers hell and made their lives miserable. So Sergeant Bacon hated us back, right? So he sits down and he's got this look on his face like, you dirty, rotten, what the hell is about to happen, And he couldn't just act like a pussy and walk away, like he didn't want to interact with us. So he was pretty much, by social conventions, forced to sit down with us, and we wrote it for everything it was worth. He sat down, and I forget which one of us yelled at first, but it was like me or Stringer. We was like, Steve, it's great to see you again, Steve. And that is a big no-no. In the military, you don't call a senior non-commissioned officer or an officer by their first name or anything except Sergeant Bacon. That's their name. If you called them anything except that, you could get in real trouble, especially with officers. You called them lieutenant or captain, you addressed them correctly. Doing anything else was highly disrespectful and illegal, literally illegal. But in a civilian setting like this, in a social setting, it was like a gray area. So anyway, we call him Steve. Steve! And he says, that's Sergeant Bacon to you. And, we point at the girl that told us, oh no, she said Steve was coming to meet her. She said she wanted to introduce us to Steve. That must be you. You're Steve. Hey, Steve, how's it going, Steve? And we just Steved the poor bastard to death all night. Well, for a few hours there, from 2 to 4, whatever it was. But we Steved him to death for a couple hours while we were sitting there. And he's getting pissed. He's fuming. And, he can't really make a big scene just because we called him by his first name, And these girls would all think he's an idiot and getting all out of hand. So he just had to sit there and take it, which he did. Giving him credit, he did. He took it pretty well. But when we got back to the barracks, so all weekend, we told anyone who would listen, all our friends and stuff there at the barracks, the other privates and, specialists and whoever lived in the barracks with us, about what had happened, about the Steve incident. So Monday morning, when Monday morning rolled around, we showed up at the company headquarters, and word had gotten all the way back around to Sergeant Bacon by then. And he calls us into his office. And he says, and he explained it to us. He said, y'all were out of line. Y'all were out of line for doing that at the bar or at the diner. But I was going to let it go. I wasn't going to even say anything about it until I got here this morning and I heard that you had told every single person that you would run into about it and try to make me look like an idiot. He said, now you forced my hand. He said, all you had to do was keep your mouth shut. And we said, yeah, we know. But why'd you tell everybody? I don't know. It just seemed like a good idea at the time. He said, well, now I'm going to have to do something about it. We know. So he takes us outside his office, which is right where everybody walks back and forth through the company headquarters. And he makes us get down in the push-up position, the front lean and rest. And we do push-ups, and he's having us do all these exercises there. Jump squats and knee bends, on our backs doing leg lifts. He starts, going through all this PT stuff and just what we called smoking us back then in the Army. We called it getting smoked or smoking us. And this goes on, and he keeps, as he's doing it, he smokes us for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, something like that. We're getting tired, arms burning and stuff. But then he starts asking us, what's my name? And we'd say, I don't know, Sergeant. But then he asked me, what's my name, Private? And I said, I don't know, Sergeant. You just said it. Said what, Sergeant? You said it again. He wanted us to call him Sergeant instead of, to prove that his name was Sergeant and not Steve. So he went through this whole thing. And literally, we were there for hours. And people were walking past us. And he would have us doing all this stuff, these push-ups and stuff for hours, and he was trying to break us. He was trying to get us to just admit that his name was Sergeant, and then he would let us go, right? But we just wouldn't do it. We wouldn't give in. At one point, we're sitting there just sweat pouring off of us and shaking in the front lean and rest position like this, and I look over at Stringer and I said, don't give up on me, dude. Don't you quit, man. And he looks at me and says, dude, I thought you were going to quit. There ain't no damn way. And then later on, he tells me, I was seriously doubting you, dude, all the way up until you asked me that. He said, once you asked me that, I said I knew we had him. There's no way he was going to break us. So we went on like that. And Sergeant Bacorn actually asked us one time, and he said, the whole what's my name thing. And he said, I'll give you a hint. It starts with S and ends with T and got a G in the middle. And I think it was Stringer that says, Suged! Yeah, it was crazy. But we literally, I think breakfast time came, and he had to release us. The lieutenant, the platoon leader, told him that he had to let us go eat breakfast. So Sergeant Bacorn told us to get up and go eat. And he thought that, we'd take our time and walk over there, and give him a break from smoking us and give ourselves a break. Me and Stringer looked at each other. We literally sprinted as fast as we could to the mess hall, shoveled down our food. We didn't even say a word to each other. We shoveled down our food and sprinted back, and then started yelling at him, "We're waiting on you, Sergeant! Don't quit on us now. We're not done with you." Got back down in the front lane of rest position and started screaming at him, "We're not done with you. Come back here. Where are you?" And he come back out shaking his head like, "Are you two insane? What the f*** is wrong with you two? Dude, you could have taken a break. What are y'all doing?" "We're training, Sergeant." "Don't quit on us now." Yeah, he thought we were nuts. He thought we were out of our gourds, and he just kept going and kept going, and he finally got us up and called us into the office, back into the office, shut the door, and he says, "I can see, I know by y'all taking all this stuff, all this abuse, that y'all are good soldiers. Y'all are good men. I would want to go to war with you. You two are the ones I'd want with me, if we went to war. But you've got to meet me in the middle here somewhere. Just give in. Just say it. So I can, so we can get on with our day and get out of this shit." And we pretty much told him with respect, respectfully, we told him, "We can't do that, Sergeant. We're not doing it." And we just are, is that it? Is that all you needed from us? Yeah. That's all I wanted to say. So we went back out and got back in the front lane of rest position. "We're ready, Sergeant." Finally, the company commander got tired of hearing us screaming and, obscenities and motivational bullshit. So finally, the company commander come around the corner after, had to be 4 hours at least, because we went to lunch too, the same way. We sprinted to lunch and sprinted back. I mean, by lunchtime, sprint was slow, because we weren't robots. We weren't Superman. We were exhausted, just we were worn out, but we we went over there as best we could and ate and came back. But we never gave up. And eventually the company commander come around and told Sergeant Paycorn, you got to quit, dude. I don't care what these guys have done. Either let them go or kill them or something. But I'm tired of listening to them. This is it. It's done. So Sergeant Paycorn had to tell us, you know, all right, go. Get out of here. That was one of the craziest things I've ever done in my life, as far as, you know, just tested myself to the absolute limit for an ideal, for something that I just held to be true inside me, and that's it. Just because I wanted to believe in it, and so I pushed myself beyond my limits. It's a pretty cool feeling, even if I was wrong in a way, you know what I mean? It's a pretty cool feeling and a pretty cool experience to push yourself beyond your limits, to do what you didn't think you could do a few minutes ago, but just the adrenaline and the belief that you have to do it drives you to do it. The one time in my life I beat the man, and now that I look back, he was probably not that bad of a guy. I kind of regret it for doing that to old Sergeant Paycorn, but he was a baby boomer. He'll get over it. But also I'm proud of it because I was tested and I wasn't found wanting. And I'll leave you there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. I have a couple more stories like this, so it's especially important that you do so on these kind of videos, so I know you're interested and I know that you want to see more, so I'll make more of these. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by clicking on the Super Thanks button down below this video, or you can hop over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I'll put that link down in the description. If you're interested in Gen X gear, like the hat I'm wearing, rub some dirt on it, you can go over to Redbubble and check that stuff out. We've got stickers, coffee mugs, all kinds of cool stuff over there. And I'll put that link down in the description as well. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That really helps out a lot, and I appreciate those of you who do that. Thank you. And if you have any suggestions for future videos on Gen X Thinks, please put your ideas down below in the comments, or you can email me, and the email's on the channel page. Thanks again, and as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.